don't know who I am, just Google me and United, or me, NASA, FBI, all of the above. We are going to talk a little bit of housekeeping. We've got about 90 odd slides to go through, so it's going to be sit down, pin your ears back, and all that good stuff. I will make sure that most of the slides get published. There's some stuff in here that I don't want published. It will become apparent why. I've just realized the next slide has Gurkon on it because that's what I was presenting yesterday up in Grand Rapids. We're going to talk about red versus blue. We're going to talk about some other fun stuff we've been messing around with. And this is not what we're going to do. We will not be doing death by PowerPoint. As I said, unfortunately, I was up at Gurkon. So this is the Gurkon rule. If you see people basically reading from the slides like that, you are allowed to taser them. We're in Texas, which means you can taser them and probably wax load them as well. All right, this is why we're here. Never underestimate the power of stupid people in large groups. This is what we are facing up against these days. This is what's happening, this is what's going on. Let's take a look at the humans that we're actually trying to deal with. From the upside, the nice fuzzy statement that goes with it. For all that we are, we have a capacity to evolve. It's it's one of those statements that says, hey, it's really nice and people are good and people are generally useful. And then we turn around to this. We get to the stage where we have to put up signs that say tweet after leaving the burning building, please. Which end of the chainsaw to hit, and by the way, please don't molest the crocodiles. Fucking signs have to go for this. This is what Darwin was around about for. It's like, okay, you feel like molesting it? Have at it. No more kids. And then we take a look at where we're going. We take a look at about 2020, where we'll be. About 5.5 billion connected people by 2020. You start taking a look at the standard bell curve. For those of you that work in the normal industry, it's like, okay, 15% of you are going to get the end of your pay raise, you'll get the tap on the head. 70% of you are going to be, oh, you're so cute, and we'll keep you on for another year. And 15% of you get shown the door on Friday. You start taking a look at that where we look at security. You get 15% of people, give or take a bit, who understand security. You get 70 or so percent of the people that go, we're the sheeple, we'll follow everybody else because that's a good thing. And then you get 15% who go, 1 through 6 is a really good password. And if I want to be really sneaky, I'll put 7, 8, and 9, and I might even put an exclamation mark on the end of it. So you break these numbers down, and we're being generous, by the way, by saying 15% get security. It's a generous number. Break it down, basically we figure out that 9% of the US population gets or understands security, which means there's 91% of people that are like this. And this is what we have to deal with. And this is how we feel when we're dealing with them. And this is why. So Phoenix did a really nice presentation up in Grand Rapids yesterday. And they basically have, I think it's 2.5 billion passwords, accounts, and stuff like that. And they've extrapolated all the IDs, all the passwords, and where the duplicates are. So putting 1 through 6 as the first password, that's just the LinkedIn one and a couple of others. But that actually still comes out as the top. We've been bitching about passwords for 25 years, and we think that's a good password, for God's sakes. What the hell are we trying to deal with? I had, when we were out at Atlanta earlier this year, I had the Deloitte breach on there. And they asked me to take it down because they were sponsoring a conference. So I did, and I put Forbes up instead. Forbes 1 is a really good password. Not. We start taking a look at what we're having to deal with, and this is kind of where we feel. Smartphones, stupid people. Then we take a look at things that are released. So there's a really good report out there called the Black Report. Really nice, really useful. If you don't know what it is, get hold of a copy of it. It's easy enough to find. Go Google the Black Report. You'll find people like me and others in it that discuss what we're doing in the industry. The big ones, and the takeaways I've thrown up on here is this one. This one's the interesting one. 81% of us basically say we can identify and get data out of our target environment inside 12 hours. And yet mean time to discovery is 140 odd days. Not good statistics. We take a look at stuff like this. Almost 3/4 of pen testing and assessment, we walk back in again on year 2, and we find the same shit that didn't get fixed on year 1. And by the time we get to year 3, we've realized they're not going to fix year 1 or year 2, so why the hell are we bothering to do the same stuff? So then we look at what the rest of us are actually doing. This is what the 9% of us are doing. We are getting eaten by the technology. we're not winning. Some other interesting and fun statistics. $2 trillion a year impact to the economy on security. Not pretty. You want quantifiable risks? This is where it is. I know these are being recorded. I will also make sure that most of these slides are available. So if anybody wants a copy of them, we'll make sure the stats and all that stuff's available. Almost daily major breaches. I actually had a nice number. I had like a couple 100 million people were actually identities. And I'm like, fuck it. Everybody's lost their identity probably a couple of times at this point. Healthcare, we're at almost 700 million records have been lost since we started keeping count. That's everybody twice, just to make sure we're doing it properly. Malware programs found, tools lost by the agencies. You get the idea. And then we take a look at where we are going, the future. In other words, those that are coming up behind us and hopefully are going to do a better job than we did. At least half to 3/4 of them, they're not even getting talked to about this industry. Or if they are, we don't get hit about it until we get into high school or into college. Yet kids are still using these things at 8, 9, 10 years old, and we're not hitting for another 10, 15 years? Not brilliant. Well, that's fine. IT's got it covered. Regular IT will have it covered. Nah, no problem. IT will deal with this. Not. The demand, where are we? Million and a half underwhelmed at the moment, at least on this one. And then we take a look at how many other of the statistics. The lack of experience and the inadequate staffing. And we wonder why we're getting breached when only about 1/4 of the bigger enterprises have any kind of 24/7 monitoring. So let's see, we're putting more tech into more people's hands, more complex technology, handing that technology to a population that doesn't even know what the hell to do with the basic stuff, let alone everything that's coming down the line. And we're basically integrating it into every single means of our life without putting more effort and more time into it. And then we don't have the eyes on the environments. And yet we still have to do this. We still have to lock it and protect it, and we have to give access to it. And when I do this stuff and I talk to executives and leaderships, they're like, oh, it's not that bad, is it? And I'm like, okay, let's talk about this one then. How do I take all of your data inside 2 minutes? Because I'm a nice hacker, I want to help you. I will create a really nice healthcare website. And the healthcare website is done at you, for you, you the client. We'll brand it, we'll put your logo on it. We'll make it look pretty, we'll make it look nice. And because we're friendly, we know that healthcare is a complex problem. So we're going to send it to every single employee that we can find on the internets. All of those corporate email accounts that get used for all that personal public data. And then when we send it to them, the employee's going to be like, well, it said a portal login, it must be perfectly safe. And because we're good, in the email that we send out to the employees, we say, hey, the company cares about you, they love you, they consider you, they think you're wonderful, and because we're going to make it easy for you, we've basically hooked up to their Active Directory. So all you have to do is use your regular user ID and password to log into our portal. And the employee goes, well, that's perfectly okay. And that's our success rate. Now, if anybody wonders what a metric fuckton of user training is, we have the definition of a metric fuckton. That is the exact Reddit definition of a metric fuckton. So when you do go to your leadership and your management and go, we have a metric fuckton of problems, you can actually quantify it. When you have finished quantifying it, you can still express it this way. And then we look at us, the information security professionals. We have spent 25 years, DEF CON's 25 this year. We've spent all of that time bitching and screaming and complaining about passwords. We have blamed everybody. We've blamed the users, the managers, the finance guys. We've blamed the developers. We blame the network guys. We blame everybody. I've blamed my grandmother on stage for crying out loud. We still blame everybody. We're really good at it. And the problem is as well, as you go back in history, we had a nice time of safe and security. And it really was when the mainframe was in the room and the green screen was in the same bloody room and there was a man on the door with a gun. If you didn't belong in there, he was allowed to shoot you. After that, we lost. So then the problem is, with where we are today, who the hell do we blame? And this is where I took a bit of a pause a couple of months ago. I'm like, okay, Who do we want to blame today? Who do we actually really want to sit down and go, what the hell is the problem? And unfortunately, it's us. We are so focused as red team people and as security professionals about breaking things. We stand up on stage and go, oh, look at me, I've got another exploit, and aren't I cute because of it? Look at what I broke. Somebody put a new shiny tool out there and I broke it. Aren't I clever? No, not anymore, you're not. We still break it all, and then we blame the very charges that we are responsible for. The very people that look to us to help protect them. We keep breaking all of their shit and we keep telling them they're useless. Our job is to protect them. We spend more time with Band-Aids. We spend more time buying have we got any vendors in here before I really let loose on them? I'm going to let loose on them anyway, it's just I'm going to give you a fair fucking warning. We spend more time buying Band-Aids and shit than we do actually fundamentally fixing the problems. The vendor goes, oh, I've got a blinky light for 2018. 2018's blinky light is a purple blinky light, and it will fix all of your problems. Taser them, tar, feather, and then stake them on the front fucking lawn. Because I would argue most of us have got the solutions that we already need, we just haven't implemented them properly. And this, unfortunately, is where we are. As an industry, we have failed. And here's why we've failed. I've been doing this for more years than I care to think of. And in the 20-something odd years I've been doing this, both in this country and abroad, I've yet to fail to break into anything. That's a great ego boost, but it also sucks. Because it means I've not done a good enough job of teaching the organizations how to protect themselves. Yes, they haven't listened. Congratulations, it means I haven't communicated properly. Well, they haven't got budget, which means I haven't actually helped them articulate risk. I haven't helped them with a maturity model. I basically have spent most of my time in a red spandex suit, jumping over fences, breaking and taking whatever we want, whenever we want, and however we want to take it. And we have simply lost the core focus, which is this. That's our job at the end of the day. And we're not doing a good one of it. We're really good at this. We're really good at promoting this. But we're not good at promoting why Blue has to win. We have helped build a ridiculously sized industry on this. I don't remember what the statistics are and how many security companies there are out there, or how many billions this industry is worth, but for all the billions that we spend and all the billions that we gain, we keep losing more and more fucking data on a daily basis. How the hell is that a success model? We find more issues, we break more things, yet we don't fix it. We don't come up all the time. We do sometimes and go, hey, here is a problem, here is what we need to do to fix it. Or here are a couple of options, and here is how I'm going to articulate those options to leadership, to managers, to users. We keep accepting the fact that basically once a year, for one day, or for 1 hour of one day a year, we're going to give end user training. Don't click shit. For 1 hour, don't click shit, user. Oh, absolutely, I won't click it today. Tomorrow, they'll click shit. A week later, they're gonna fucking click everything. 1 month later, they're clicking everything we're giving them. 364 days later, they're like, no, click? Oh, okay, got it. I won't click shit starting again tomorrow. Why do we do this to ourselves? Why do we not, every single month, make it fun? Hey, January this year, we're going to talk about your long-lost uncle in Nigeria who's dead and has left you $3.5 million. In February, we're going to talk about Interflora scams. And in March, Auntie Flora, yes, she doesn't want to date you. Therefore, don't click on the dating scams. And in May, don't click on the pizza shit. Why don't we do this? Why don't we make it fun? Why don't we make it interesting? Because the company only wants to do it once a year. Well, why? Have we not done a good enough job of explaining this? It comes down to us again. And unfortunately, for the most part, we have kind of neglected to really fix a lot of this. And unfortunately, where we're going now is there's too much to fix. 10 years ago, we probably stood a pretty good chance. Nowadays, with all the crap that's coming down the line, let alone everything that's here, let alone what we're going to go through in a minute, There is so much of this data to worry about. The IoT stuff, the BYOD stuff, all the laptops, the devices, the vehicle stuff, the fintech stuff, you name it, it's all coming or it's all already here. Let alone some of the fun stuff we're going to do with nanotech and everything else. And then we get to the vendors. You guys remember the WPA2 thing that came out last Sunday? Okay, there were a number of us that had access to that before it came out and before it came public. We got to validate it, we got to look at it, we got to go, this is cute, this is wonderful, this was beautifully put together. P.S. The agencies have had hold of it for a couple of years, but we didn't tell you that. And then we took a bet. We were like, you know what, this is going to get released 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. How long is it going to take before a vendor goes, if you'd have bought our blinky light, you would have been fixed? 4 hours. That's all it took from release to a marketing department of a very well-known vendor to go, well, if you'd have actually bought our software product and our little widget over here, you would have been perfectly fixed. 4 hours. Bullshit. So, this is where we need to be. One team, one fight. We do a lot of work with the National Guard and also with like US Cyber Command and a bunch of other weird and wonderful cabbage-colored people. And we're doing more with them, and we're trying to basically get to the stage where they're not playing red versus blue games. We're actually winning that battle for a change, for God's sakes. Now that cyber's being declared its own domain, the rules are different. But what we're doing is putting a better blue team playbook together. Everybody's got red team field manuals, everybody's got how to break shit. Now we're actually going to go, okay, how the hell do we actively and properly defend? How do we together do a better job of this? We need to coordinate and collaborate a hell of a lot better between us. Yes, OWASP has its chapters, ISSA does, InfraGard does. InfraGard, you feed stuff in and nothing ever comes out. Well, that doesn't fucking work. True. Tell me I'm wrong? Not wrong, am I? Yeah. There's a little bit of love lost between the FBI and I. For obvious reasons. But my problem is we're not good at standing up and going, I fucked up. Learn from my mistakes. Personally, I've done it. Go look at LinkedIn on me. I had a pretty tumultuous year over the last couple of years, and eventually I put my hand up and said, I screwed up. Learn from my mistakes. As individuals and as organizations, we need to do a better job of that. And if the lawyer doesn't like it, take them outside, taser them, tar and feather them, and dump them somewhere. There's plenty more where they came from. They keep breeding the buggers. So this is the question. Is this the death of the red team? And I would argue it is not. Because we still need it. We need it for a bunch of different reasons. One, obviously, to keep the vendors honest. The vendor's gone, I've got this new widget. Broke it. Not only did I break it, but I asked all sorts of awkward questions, like what are the metrics on that? How often does it work? How long do those metrics last for? In what circumstances do they work? You know, like the VW scandal? And like the VW cars had this mode where they worked really, really well in a test environment, and in the real world they sucked. Ask your vendor, so the metrics that you're telling me, is that real world shit or is that in your nice laboratory with your tame viruses? Silence. But seriously, before you go buy the new blinky lights, ask those nasty, awkward, squeamish questions. Stop accepting mediocrity. And the same thing again, it's like healthcare environment. We were breaking into one and they were like, oh no, you can't test that. Well, why? Well, that's where all the stuff that kills people. What happens if I scan it? Oh, it all goes down and people die. So I can't run a simple Nessus scan against that shit. You know this, you all heard this story before?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, with like healthcare environments and ICS environments and manufacturing. Yeah, you know what? Scan it. Because when it goes down, the vendor goes, well, you weren't allowed to do that. Taser the vendor, stake them out, and tell them that Windows 95 or Windows 2000 is not an acceptable operating system. Fix your shit or I'm going to tar and feather you every single time you step over the threshold. I'll even FedEx it to you. We need to stop accepting that bullshit. So, I need to pause for a second because I need some liquid. Would you mind? Do you like water or anything that's liquid-based? Thank you. I suddenly realized I've been talking, I'm getting thirsty and thirsty. You know, yeah. Somebody talked to Southwest about one of them scotches. I took a picture of the TSA agent this morning. I went into Grand Rapids and I handed the box over and he just looked at it because in Grand Rapids is not a big airport. You basically hand it to Southwest, they tag it, then you take it to the TSA agent. He goes, well, what's this? Runs it through the scanner and you can just see him go, what the fuck? There's 48 bottles of like 4-ounce single malts and stuff in there. And he's just like, and he had to open it up, take them all out, individually wipe them around. I sat and watched him do this. And he's like, okay. I'm like, you have to put them back in order. And he just looked at me. Yes! Like, screw you. All right, so this is where we need obviously squirrels with flamethrowers. We need a mentality reset. Here's why. This is something we all not just need to carry amongst ourselves, which most of us know, but we need to start preaching a little bit more effectively. And it's a hard one because, you know, I'm based out in Colorado. The company I work for is based out of the Valley. And they're like, oh, we must get market share, we must do this, and yeah, we'll figure security out later. No, quit that shit. Because you know why? I'm going to break it and tear it to pieces unless you do it properly right the first time. You can't just build it, sell it, and then let somebody else. Thank you very, 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 very much. You're awesome. I can deal with wet. Yeah, that's the problem. You have moisture in the air in this part of the country, don't you? We don't have that in Colorado. There's nothing. Ah, thank you. But this is something we need to help our organizations and those that we work for, those that we consult with. And there's ways of doing it. There are ways of talking to companies about maturity models, about how effective security be, how security can now start to be the differentiator. When they're walking in, when the vendor or the consumer's walking in to make a selection, how can you make security the differentiator? Dear consumer, this product over here will last 30 minutes and an attack against me. This product will last 2 hours. This product will last 6 hours under a heavy attack. Which one are you going to buy? Because if it's 6 hours, the chances are, if your asses are gauged, you might actually recognize that something's going on if you're paying attention to your logs. But the 30-minute one, you're screwed. All of these different ways of looking at things are going to help. So it can be a differentiator, because if it's not, we'll still tear the shit to pieces. We're doing it right now. This is what a good friend of mine put together. I'm actually wearing it, or it's in the box somewhere. Tearing Bluetooth to pieces again. This is the big one. The vendors. The integrators. Those of you that have the checkbooks, use them more effectively and use them wisely. Ask the awkward questions. Really hold everybody accountable. And when the vendor leaves site and they've left defaults in place, you get to taser them in the back as they leave the site. There's new tasers. There's actually 3-pronged tasers. So you can actually get the sales rep, the sales manager, and the pre-sales guy at the same time. But I'm serious. I mean, when we break into places, I've got a nice little spreadsheet. It's about 3,500, 4,000 lines long. It has a whole bunch of defaults. 90% of the time when we're walking into a facility, we use that spreadsheet and we break in using defaults. Why the f*** are we still able to do that 25 years later? The vendor goes, well, it's the only way we can do management and support on it. Come with me, vendor. Stand in this little bit of water while I taser you. That shit's got to stop. We need to stop buying stuff and allowing that to happen inside our environments. Same thing with the blinky lights. Shit's not going to save you. Why? Because, well, these are some of the environments of reality. This is 2 places we broke into. They were scary. They bought another firewall because their current one didn't work. And I'm like, I think you have other problems before we get to firewalls. Packetstorm said it right several years ago, quite a number of years ago actually, scary man. Evolve or die. We as an industry need to get better. We need to stop coming up with band-aids and products which just solve one little piece of the problem. We need to take a much more holistic view. We need to look at more things than just simply reactive stuff. Look at the predictive, look at the proactive side of the world and understand it better that way. And by the way, when your new widget comes in and it has another console, it's not going to be effective. So how do we integrate into more consoles? And passwords, obviously. It would be nice not to break into some things. It would be nice potentially to use some level of biometrics-ish. Nice thing with passwords, you lose them and you can refresh them. Not so nice things with fingerprints, you lose them, you don't want to cut off fingers. Cost remediation, user education, you get the idea. Quit making it easy. And the summary on this piece, simple. We don't want defaults, we don't want hard-coded, yada, yada, yada. As Blue Team, less screens, less systems, something more intuitive. And we need to collaborate better. If you are having, or you are part of a pen testing team, rather than going, hey, I can sit in my underwear at home and I can break into your shit, go, hey, you know what? I'm going to put on a pair of trousers. I'm going to go into the client site. I'm going to sit with the Blue Team and I'm going to help them understand what the fuck I do to break their system. Real time, right now. I'm going to sit right next to them and I'm going to tell the client that that's the best way to do this damn job. Because it is. Because that way, hey, did you see this? No. All right, did you see this? Yes. Okay, great. What did you do differently? Is a lot more effective than a week's worth of beating the crap out of them, handing a report and going, hey, have a nice day. And coming back next year and it's not fixed. We have to do a better job. Why? We'll take a peek into the future. How are we doing time-wise? We're good. So, let's have a discussion around some of the fun stuff. IoT, fintech, and cows. Cows are good. We can break cows. While you look at the next slide, I get to take another drink of water. Exactly. That's IoT from hell. As an organization, as end users, as consumers, they think about this bit of IoT, home, personal, lifestyle. That's it. They don't think about the rest of the crap that's going on. Why not? Because it's not exposed to them. Why not? Because they don't know it. Why don't we help educate? Why don't we help people go, hey, that's the entire ecosphere of IoT. Most of it's crap. Let us help you get better. We talk to middle managers. We talk to leadership, and we do the same thing. We go, hey, this is why this is a problem. A couple of good friends of mine up at the conference up in Michigan dropped some new tools. I'm currently running one in here. Between leaving Grand Rapids this morning and arriving here, I had 2,500 unique Bluetooth MAC addresses I pulled out, and that's 2 airplane rides and 2 airports. That's a lot of freaking MAC addresses that I can associate with, make friends with, and in the Bluetooth side of it, harvest data from. It's sitting in there now, it's still working. I'll be interested to see what it gets to be while I get home. And most of it is unrecognized MAC addresses. The whole Bluetooth ecosphere and the IoT ecosphere is like the Wild West. At least with the MAC address on a PC, you knew who the manufacturer was, pretty much where it came from, who the hell had it, and what you can do with it. Bluetooth, not so nice. Let me take a look at fintech. Financial technology sector. The whole nice idea of taking the bank out of the brick and mortar and putting it into the hands of those 5.5 billion users on their phones. And we're going to do it with $3.5 billion in funding, 2,248 companies, and 65% of them have got absolutely no clue about security. So you can buy a mortgage, you can get financing, you can do all this crap on your phone, and most of them haven't even bloody well considered security. We have to change that. We have to help people understand it's our job. Not just to break it, but help everybody understand. Get it up on Twitter, get it on YouTube, get it on everything else. Start taking a look at these things and start educating people. So, before we hit the panic button, this is what happens when you get banned from a whole bunch of airlines. You focus on other things. In this case, we focused on locomotives. We spent about a year working, a year and a bit working on locomotives. We had some fun with locomotives, lots of fun. But what we ended up having to do is redo most of our research for a whole bunch of different reasons. So we ended up saying, look, what can we do inside 48 hours? Nothing more than that. Let's start from nothing. Let's put a small team together, literally around a table with alcohol. And how much damage can we do to the entire heavy rail industry and the intermodal industry inside 48 hours? This was our tools, 200 foot of Cat5 cable. The reason it's 200 foot is we realized when you know the rail industry, when you go to the crossing signs or any of the other large stuff, there's these nice metal boxes. And there's all sorts of switching gear in there. You can pick the lock inside about 30 seconds, but if you sit outside of it with a laptop, you look a little suspicious. If, however, you do 200 foot of Cat5 cable and go to a car down the road or in the bushes, police don't even give you a kind of a day. Makes it much easier that way. Even if you wear a reflective vest, they get a little concerned. So yeah, 200 foot of Cat5 cable is pretty much what we needed. Monitoring devices, proximity devices, you get the idea. Now with the rail yards, we were like, okay, what can we do? It's the heavy rail. What moves over heavy rail? Most of the stuff that ends up in our houses or food. Well, the reason it ends up there is because of these things. This is an intermodal rail yard. User ID SA, no password. It gets you into this thing. There's actually, Shodan's got a nice little filter for doing some of these. What you're able to do at this point is you can start to take a look. So each one of the rail cars has basically an RFID tag on the side, and as it moves in and out of the rail yard, it picks up the ID tag, picks up the bill of lading and everything else on it, and starts saying where they're all going. So if you want to mess with basically orange juice, instead of orange juice going from Florida to maybe California, you want to send orange juice to, I don't know, flipping South Dakota, you can do that. It's quite fun to do. It's like you can build your own little rail yard. Now, if you really want to have a bit more fun, and how many of you guys had train sets as you were growing up? I know I did. If you want to have the grown-up version of a train set, you can. GE's locomotives. This is what we did with GE's locomotives. They're using QNX, which is a bit of a mess, and it's in white, so I apologize because it didn't come out properly. It should have been black as well. Modern locomotives, not so modern, attached on security. If you want to make yourself a GE locomotive, you can attach to it using either GE, or GE and 6 zeros. We were over in the UK earlier this year, and that little screenshot came from sitting down with Thales and GE, and they're like, oh no, you can't do that. And we're like, oh, I bet you we can. So we went on to Shodan and we telnetted into one of these. And GE's like, well, that's not one of ours. I'm like, it's got GE, it's yours. And they're like, oh, we sold that to China. I'm like, so now if you want to start and stop China's heavy industry and the locomotives, that's the user ID and the password to get into it. Simple stuff. That gets you, as long as you have the maintenance software running on your computer, which you can just call up and get if you want 30 seconds of social engineering, or just download it from the download website. 5 minutes with the actual programming, it gets you into the nice locomotive. You can have fun with it. You can start and stop your own trains. If you fancy messing with signals, that's another thing altogether. That gets a little closer. That does mean you have to pick logs, and it does mean you have to plug into their switches, which are by the sides of very, very unoccupied pieces of roads. User ID and password to get in there is actually all in the default systems. Admin will get you into the administration console for the switches, in most cases. What you can do here is basically start and stop the rail lights. So if the train's going, you can turn them red, you can turn them green, you can do all sorts of interesting things at that point, but you can only do it for the segment of rail yard that you are in, or the segment of railway that you're on. What you have to do is basically bypass what's known as a man not present switch. So in other words, each one of their switches has a little button. And if it's a zebra crossing or if it's any of this other stuff, if you press the button, you can influence that section of rail. But if you're not there to press the button, in theory, you can't do that. But you can using a good old man in the middle attack, which is what we did. What we needed to do is to figure out how to influence 100 miles worth of railway line and basically turn all the lights green or all the lights red. So what we were able to do is we got the hardware architecture, we actually picked one up off of eBay, we reverse engineered it, and we realized that it was shared memory. Buffer overflow. So we hit it with a buffer overflow, and then we hit it at the application layer and used Burp Suite to basically get us the ability to basically start adjusting all of these switches. We ended up taking over about 100 miles worth of railway. And we could turn all the lights green or all the lights red. We could raise all the barriers, turn all the barriers down, or if necessary, do shit like this. Simple stuff, 48 hours. Now we can hit heavy rail industry. Everybody good so far? Oh, don't be scared yet. Now we get to be scared. This is fun stuff. It's actually 91%. I apparently can't do math when I'm half asleep. So, remember the 91 percentile of people that don't care about security? We have a couple of things we can do. We can either take them out of the equation completely, or we can make them care. The easiest way to make the 91 percentile care is take something away from them. Water, heat, light, or in this case, food. We picked on the cow, the poor cow. We picked on the cow for a couple of reasons. One, because we picked on the UK version of the system, which was, part of me is Scottish, part of me is English. When Scotland went for independence, we lost because there were too many friggin' English people up there. You solved that problem several hundred years ago by kicking everybody out. We still have got to figure that one out, apparently. So I'm like, screw it. If we can't actually kick them out, let's poison the milk, because they put milk in their tea, so let's poison the milk. So we did. So we went after the milking machines. And the milking machines are all running Windows XP, which we obviously all know is extremely secure these days. And we picked on a couple of vendors and suppliers of these milking machines. And like any work that you do against any corporation, you do your open source intelligence, you do your research, you do your gathering, you figure out where they are. So we did that, and then we looked at the actual hardware and the software and the systems they used. And when the vendor goes in to sell the poor cow herder hardware and software, he's like, you don't want to look after this computer. We'll put PC Anywhere on it, and we'll look after it for you. And they did, with the same user ID and password. In this case, it was Fullerwood1 was the user. Fullerwood was the user ID, and Fullerwood1 was the password. It was written down in their operating manuals, online, on the internets. So yeah. Now the fun thing about this one is you can actually log into a whole bunch of their systems. You get into all of them. But this is the interesting one. What happens is when the cow comes in to be milked, what this system does is not only does it milk the darn cow, it tests the pH balance and other chemicals in the milk. If it doesn't like the balance, it's able to adjust the chemicals in the milk. It can also inject into the cow. So in our instance, we decided we want happier cows, which means we can add more drugs to the cow. We also decided we could do interesting things to the milk, so we can add more drugs to the milk. We own about 250, 300 of these machines now, covering about 1.5 million, 2 million head of cow. So at this point in time, with about half an hour's worth of work and a couple of scripts, we can basically poison a couple of million cows and poison the milk supply. We can get our own back on England. If that wasn't good enough, the livestock's connected. This is good. If you used to do the war driving of old, now you can war drive cows. They have near-field communicators on them. They have RFID chips in the ears. Part of it is to figure out the health of the cow, if it's in breeding season, all this other stuff. But it's all run on an Access database, which is also on the same PC Anywhere system. Oh yeah. So we took the PC Anywhere database, we took the Access database that was on the system, and we overwrote the GPS coordinates. So a good friend of mine currently has about 2.5 million cows sitting in his back garden as far as the GPS coordinates are concerned. So the poor farmers in Wyoming are like, I can see fucking Betsy, but she doesn't appear to be where... What the hell is going on with this shit? Every half an hour we were overriding the database. Obviously it's not going to end well. We know this at this point in time. So, we can do the same thing with crops, we can do the same thing with farm animals, we can do the same thing with everything else pretty much. John Deere runs 2 SFTP servers. The 2 SFTP servers have they have a certificate. You can pick up the certificate from one of their maintenance suppliers in South America, which means you can get in there, you can adjust the code, you can put your own smiley faces in, and if you fancy planting the crops either shallower or deeper, you can do that fairly easily. So now you can mess around with crops. You get the idea, you can mess around with things. So, I say remember last year because I wasn't here last year because I was actually up north last year, but this is what we talked about last year. We talked about nanotechnology and hacking humans. There's some really fun stuff you can do. Nanotechnology and bio-nanotechnology is actually doing really, really well these days. There's some amazing stuff they're doing as far as being able to influence cancer systems, influence Alzheimer's systems, and everything else. The problem is with about $150 worth of Arduino, we can issue the same type of signaling. So this is fun. We actually did a bit of an update on this one. They've now got to a stage where they've taken some of... For any of you that are having problems, you can actually now motorize your sperm. So that is a bio-nanotech carbon-based sperm accelerator. Your sperm can... Oh, I don't even want to go there. Don't even want to go there. Yeah, this is freaking awesome. Motorized sperm is like, I'm going to be fucking first. And there's freaking Ferrari emblem on the side of it. Or actually, it's Mopar it over here, isn't it? Mopar sperm. Yeah, so this is the shit that we're up to. And this is great because you can control it using basically RFID or laser. Basically, it's a heat-based system, which is marvelous until you look at somebody like me who goes, okay, I can rewrite the code in Cello. I can also send my own RFID signal using $150 worth of Arduino as opposed to $500,000 worth of surgery shit. And God only knows what I'm going to make your sperm do, but it sure as hell isn't going to be going to the egg. Same thing with all the human stuff. This is where we're going.
So you probably already done it. Huh? The first thing I would do is to have somebody else to look at the same computer in the same environment.
Done.
That's already done.
Done it, and it tells it to go pan sand.
So that's so you can.
I can
you can tell it's unique.
Yes, exactly.
Is there any scientific proof of that?
Yes, I'm actually pulling out some other scientific. So this started with me bashing away at it, and then spent a bunch of time working with a couple of the actual institutions on this.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, oh yeah, this isn't me. Well, this is
that's the most important thing, actually, the uniqueness.
Yeah, that's. There's a couple of different ways of establishing uniqueness. Part of it comes down to the signature that's actually coming off the brain. So I had, I think, 8 or 9 different people working with the same computer, the desktop computer, and everybody at that point is unique. Now, that's 9 people out of a population of, what, 7 billion for crying out loud? Again, this is just me working on it. But the metrics that are being used and the way the signals are being pulled out, because you're not pulling out from just one single source, you're pulling out from 4 main lobes, plus you can actually integrate other data as well. There's actually some interlobal data. There's some interesting stuff. Yes, it's relatively unique.
Yeah, you also need to consider uniqueness of not only on the same environment. Is it possible my clustering to your car is the same clustering of you to other devices, right?
To be determined. There's this, basically, the work I'm doing here runs between about 10 o'clock at night and 2 o'clock in the morning, which is when I'm not working on the rest of my work or I'm not traveling around having fun in front of conferences. This is back of the napkin work I'm working on. And it's working so far, but it's like, okay, now how do I take it to the next step? Which is part of the reason that it's like, at some point, I probably need to do something with protecting it. Figure that out at some point in time. But yeah, there's a lot. That's why that slides in there, which is like, hey, we've gotten a certain distance, but I know there's a lot more to do. But it was one of those, I'm like, hey, we talk about beating the crap out of things. Now let's talk about fixing some of that.
And even if you turn off the recording device, and you're presenting to these people, and
I know.
At least,
I know. And I know a few of these people in this room, and if I see it come out sideways, I get to taser them. It's quite simple. I know where most of them live. I know. I'm aware of it. I hold a bunch of patents through other companies. It's a pain in the ass. I hate dealing with lawyers.
Just as a reminder, we're 2 minutes.
Yeah, I know. I got to shut up because there's other people doing stuff. All right, so anyway, updates. So the upsides of this things, we can do away with passwords. Potentially. Hopefully, if I'm carrying on the same way. We obviously have us. We become the authentication method. Kind of a nice way of doing it. We can't be coerced into providing the data, which is also another nice way of looking at it. Our resistance, you get the idea. The downsides, hacking the brain for fun has been great. Now what the hell do we do with it? If the man decides the man wants to try to get hold of it, how do we protect it from the man? All those other good things. Because the man's really good at looking after our data. Not. Targeting the advertising, you get the idea. So, if we're not careful, we're fucked. Again. And now we get to panic. All right, so wrapping it up because I need to shut up pretty quickly. This is the future of technology. End of discussion. We are going to become melded in one way, shape, or form. Either consciousness, nano-architectures, and a whole bunch of other stuff, existential existence. Get used to it, figure out how to work with it. Because in 25 years' time, I really don't want to be talking about passwords. I kind of want to be done with the stupid things pretty damn soon. What I honestly want to do is I have a nice AS400 picked out in the middle of frickin' New Zealand I want to emigrate to. Nice existential existence on an AS400. I'm done, I'm happy. The rest of you buggers can figure out what to do with it. We need to get to root causes. Stop putting band-aids, stop buying band-aids. Taser the vendor, obviously. And this is why. There is a tsunami of stuff coming our way. That is an understatement. We really have more to do and more to fix than we know at the moment, let alone what's coming down the line. Breaking is too easy, fixing it's a lot harder. Blue's got to win, and we, red teaming, we got to help. It's as simple as that. We cannot continue to be aggressive with each other. Now, for those of you that know Trevor, a bit of Eddie's art for Trevor, and the final slide. So, I say we do questions, but we're probably out of time, and I don't want to stop anybody else from coming in.
Yeah, we're out of time.
All right.
Where can people follow you and catch up with you if they want to ask questions
I'll be
personally?
outside. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. Everybody can find me. Thank you very, very much. Appreciate it.